welcome to Rational Reality, episode 5, where we're talking about our office as a thing of the past. Today I'm joined by Jason James, who's one of our centre managers at Woodhead Enterprise. Jason manages the Boston Enterprise Centre, which we manage on behalf of Boston Borough Council. So welcome, Jason. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you, Tom. Good to see you again.
Thank you. Yeah, good to see you too. And in what's definitely some different times at the minute for the serviced office and the kind of conferencing sectors that we're in. So what people might not realise is that the Woodhead Group have a couple of managed office centres across those centres. We have there's about 50 businesses that are actually located with us. We offer serviced office accommodation, conferencing and training facilities, and also virtual tenancies, so people that are wanting things like a registered office address. In 2019, we hosted just shy of 1,300 conferences or training events or meetings at those two facilities. And I think it's fair to say, Jason, that 2020 has been a bit of a different situation, where we've had sort of 3 months of this sort of lockdown scenario and the gradual easing off. As part of that, we commissioned a piece of research looking at how that pandemic sort of affected this market and the future of office spaces and conferencing and everything else in between, to kind of help us to understand what's happening in the marketplace. So part of today's episode is going to be sharing some of those insights and talking to yourself, Jason, about your thoughts around some of that feedback that we've had. But before we kind of get into some of that feedback, just a quick thought from yourself. What has really changed in the world of office space from your perspective?
Okay, I suppose as soon as lockdown happened, we saw an immediate drop in footfall to around about 15% of pre-COVID numbers. The tenants started beginning to sort of work from home, and employers were enrolling their staff onto the job retention scheme. So that's first off what happened. Within weeks, we started to see an appetite of people returning back to the office. That was from the employer side, but also from the employees as well. And footfall increased to around about 20%, 25% over those following few weeks. There was a lot of focus on working safely. Businesses started offering flexible working opportunities to their staff. And I think what we're seeing now, is further increased footfall. Businesses are needing to make use of our meeting room facilities to have sort of to carry out planning activities and to actually get together face to face and do some collaborative working in a socially distant way.
Okay. And you mentioned there are a few things like flexible working and people starting to utilise the meeting space. Have you noticed any other trends in terms of how those customers are having to adapt their spaces in order to cope with kind of change scenario we've got at the minute?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, people are making use of the flexibility of our office spaces. First off, I mean, we've had 14 internal office moves since lockdown began, and that's for a number of reasons. People have had to reduce the size of their offices, so move from larger offices into smaller ones, or vice versa. Some businesses, some of key worker businesses in particular, have had to take on more space. So again, they've been able to do that. One of the benefits of serviced office accommodation is that flexibility, and it's been great to see that we've been able to support our tenants by allowing that to actually happen. I've also noticed in the offices, people have been changing the layouts, people rearranging the desk spaces. People are no longer sort of face to face in the office, they're more side by side or back to back even. And there's been a big increase in cleaning and hygiene, I think, obviously throughout the building, but also within individual tenants' offices. I think as well as that, people are changing their business strategies. Some people are diversifying some of the products and services, and that's also good to see that people are adapting to a new norm.
Okay, so quite a lot of change then, as you're seeing it at the moment.
Definitely.
If we kind of move on a bit then into some of these research findings that we've had. So, firstly, since March, 60% of the businesses that we spoke to or that we got feedback from reported that between 75 to 100% of staff have been working from home, which is obviously a huge number of the workforce. You mentioned, I think, earlier that you're starting to see footfall increase. Have you seen a significant change as we've started to see the restrictions lifted over the kind of last few weeks?
Yeah, definitely. We've seen a steady return to the centre over the past few weeks, and I'd say now we're about at 80% of pre-COVID numbers of tenant staff back in the office, and that's growing week on week. I think we entered lockdown and we were about 87% occupied in terms of our offices. And we've had 4 new business tenants actually move into the centre since lockdown began. You know, we've been doing a lot of things to ensure that the building is clean, it's hygienic, and we've been sharing information with our customers about that. And I think that's encouraged them. It's given them confidence, and it's encouraged them to return back to the workplace, perhaps earlier than in some other places. I think as well, there's some jobs, some tasks simply can't be done at home. You know, people have to get together and they have to work collaboratively and bounce ideas off other people. And I think we're seeing a lot of that happening. And also, I think people need visibility and need to collaborate. So being around other people in an office environment, it seems to be the way people want to go.
Sure. I mean, interestingly enough, to pick up on what you just mentioned, there was a poll on LinkedIn where I think 37,000 people actually were involved in the poll, and 42%, so near enough half of those, kind of preferred a combination of both home working and office-based working. What's your take on that? What are your thoughts around that?
Yeah, I think there needs to be a balance between home working and office-based working. I think employers, from what I'm hearing, want to see their staff back in the office, but I'm also hearing that employees maybe are quite happy spending a bit more time at home. So I'm thinking maybe as time goes on, I think there's going to be a bit more of a split where maybe a 60-40 split, if you like, where employees want to spend more time in the office than they do at home, but there definitely needs to be a bit of a balance. I'm wondering if the novelty factor might wear off slightly, perhaps, as partners go back to work and the children go back to school in September, for example. Yeah. And I think a lot of people I've spoken to who have come back to the office actually missed the office environment. They missed the daily interactions in the corridors with other people from other businesses, and they missed the sort of camaraderie and the friendships and the banter that goes on in office spaces. But I think, you know, we're social animals, most of us, and we perform at our best perhaps when we're surrounded by others. Yeah,
I mean, funnily enough, I was having a conversation earlier today where I'm obviously in the office today, and I had an impromptu conversation with someone which has brought about something that we'd not spoken about, and I'm not sure that the conversation would have happened if it had been left to teams and just dropping in on each other for maybe a one-to-one. And those on the spur of the moment conversations, it can be quite important, I think. So we're just talking a bit about productivity, working from home. Sure, business owners will be kind of looking at this and want to take some confidence from it, but 29% of people in that survey actually said that they were less productive when working from home, compared to just 16% who said they were more productive. So there was obviously a majority that were saying it was basically on a par, really. What are your thoughts about, you've mentioned a lot about collaboration and things like that. What are your thoughts around kind of impact on productivity about actually being in the office? What do you feel?
Yeah, I'm not really surprised that most people felt less, or a large proportion of people felt less productive at home. I think there's obviously a lot of distractions. You know, I've got 4 children myself, so we'd be competing with bandwidth for a start. I think I've got a dog, so if I'm at home, the dog's going to want to go for a walk every 5 minutes, you know. And there's always lots of DIY jobs to do, and there's so many distractions. Television is another one. And I think another survey I've seen recently, and I can't remember the source, Tom, actually, but most business owners want their people to be working back at the office. And I think the reason for that is because they feel they need to be in control of the productivity as a business owner. And I think one of the big factors affecting productivity is the office environment. So you and I have got a good setup at the moment. You know, we've got desks that are the right height, we've got chairs that are adjustable. But if a business owner can't see what their staff, the environment their staff's working in, then they haven't really got true control of that, and hence haven't got true control of their productivity. So I think a happy medium does need to be found, I think, between home working and office-based working.
Sure. Yeah, and I think, like you say, the balance can be a struggle sometimes, in some cases, for that small percentage of people that said they were more productive. I think that's probably the struggle around, does that mean that they're working a lot more hours because they're at home and they maybe can't get away from it, or they don't want to come away from it? So there's definitely a balance to be had. We've spoken a lot about office space, but we obviously also offer conferencing, training, meeting facilities, which you've mentioned earlier on. How's that changed?
Yeah, that's changed actually more so than the office spaces, I think, really, because right at the very beginning, when lockdown began, face-to-face training and conferencing, it stopped dead. It really did just stop overnight. And we're seeing that really as a short-term thing. I think once people get confidence, lockdown restrictions are being lifted, and once people are confident that we're ensuring that the workplace is a safe place to come back to, and our meeting rooms are hygienic and clean, they're going to be coming back. And we've kept in communication with our training providers and the organisations that use our meeting rooms. And our order book is actually looking really strong. We've got bookings going right through till middle of next year now. And we're anticipating some increased demand as restrictions continue to get lifted. Our training rooms, our meeting rooms, they're all COVID secure environments, and we've put measures in place to keep our customers safe and to keep their clients safe too.
Sure. Finally then, just give us your personal biggest takeaway from what's been quite a challenging scenario, managing a centre like Boston Enterprise Centre through this pandemic. What's been your biggest takeaway from it all?
That's a difficult one. It's been a bit of a roller coaster ride, so there's been so many ups and downs. But I think probably the most important thing, I think the biggest takeaway is that we've got some really great tenants, and the community spirit that's here has been amazing throughout. Really, we've seen people's business worlds and personal worlds turned upside down, I think, over the past few months. But we've seen people pick themselves up, dust themselves down, and just refocus, and they've shown such resilience, and they've just got strong plans to move forward. So I think I'm just looking forward now to crossing the finish line with our customers together, really, I think.
Fantastic. Thank you, Jason. So just to wrap up, I mean, there's a lot of things to think about, and I think the main thing that shines through from kind of talking to you about that is that there's that real balance. And obviously ourselves, we're just in the process of kind of phasing that return back into encouraging people back in the office, because it's kind of getting that connection back amongst the people in the business. I'm sure it's going to change, and I'm sure over the course of the coming months it will change, and subject to local lockdowns and the further challenges that we might see, we might have to react to things like that as well. But in the meantime, while these kind of changes are happening, if anybody out there's got any queries or any thoughts, any questions around things around office space or meetings, or how the mechanics of holding a conference might work in the current environment, then please get in touch, and we'll try our best to help and see how we might be able to support you on that. We did survey around 100 businesses to get some of the statistics for our own feedback, just to make everyone aware. So once again, I think as normal, I would encourage everyone to share this episode, share it with people who might be currently working from home or are looking at their next step to move out of the workplace the home workplace environment. And I think that's it for another episode, I think. So until next time, thank you very much.